tab open to see. Hello, let's see, Krishan. I'm gonna go back to YouTube and see if we're showing. And there is a slight delay, so hang on one second. Are we showing on YouTube? Hi, Krishan. Hi, folks. We're live. We have 3 folks with us. Goddesses, we're trying to figure out. I'm not seeing my guest, and now her mic is muted as well. There she is. There you are. But I'm not. Can you guys see us on YouTube? Do you see both of us? Could you let me know that in the comments? Because I see 3 of you are here. So let's wait, Krishan, and see. Otherwise, we'll maybe put a photo of you up, which will be very weird to just talk. And you can see her. This is so bizarre, you guys. I literally see a black screen. I wish I could show you. I don't know what is happening. All right, well, perfect.
That's all there is.
This has never happened to me before. All right, good. We can see. Okay, thanks, Ginger Snaps. Thanks,
Thank you. We've been troubleshooting for
That's why we're late. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me close actual because I do have the YouTube tab open. It's not. It's funny because it hasn't picked it up. But Krishan, I am so excited to have you here, and we figured this out like semi sort of. So Krishan, I'm going to have her introduce herself, goddesses. I think this will be a really inspiring episode because, well, it inspires me. I hope you're inspired. Before she introduces herself, I do want to say that, with the recent events that just happened in terms of the US and laws changing and so on, I really think it's going to become even more maybe important for women, maybe thinking about not necessarily expatting, maybe spending a couple months abroad or just to kind of chill out and heal. And that's a bit of what we will talk about. So hi, Bevlyn. Glad you're here. Hi, Glass Half Full. So Krishan, why don't you introduce yourself? And it's so weird because I feel like a movie star where they pretend to like be talking to somebody, but it's a green screen because I can't see you.
No worries. Well, first I want to say good afternoon to the goddesses. Hi, my name is Chrishan Wright. I am the founder of Blaxit Global and the host of the Blaxit Global podcast. Blaxit Global exists to empower and inspire members of the African diaspora to pursue a life abroad. And so I'm excited to be here and to have this wonderful conversation that I know will be inspiring on many levels, as we've said, in terms of the recent events or whatever sits on your heart. So I'm here for that.
Yeah. Well, so we had talked about just first the concept of global citizenship. So maybe you can share your thoughts on that. And we're going to talk about moving abroad in terms of embracing our peace, our inner peace, trying to have some and wellness. And I will admit, this has been very hard for me, not because my individual reproductive rights are threatened, because I'm past that stage, but it's not. I am aware of the vast impact this is going to have on, loved ones and especially poor women of color. So it's been a very hard couple of days for me. So yeah, we'll talk about that, our peace of mind and our wellness and moving abroad and how to get started. Okay, so yeah, what do you want to say about global citizenship, Krishan?
So it's an interesting concept, right? Because as people that live on this planet, right? The only people that really have a pathway out of here are Elon Musk and
Sure.
The founder of Virgin Atlantic. So I mean, for all of us, we're on this planet and we really have an opportunity not only to learn how to, bridge the divide, but also to think differently and challenge our beliefs in a lot of ways. And so from a US perspective, because as a US citizen, that's really, the lens in which I looked at the world prior to taking steps to travel abroad, it's very US centric. So people sometimes have not left their country or a state of origin. They haven't ventured out of their home state, let alone maybe to a small fraction of the US. And so when we see things on TV or we, read things in the media, it's usually doom and gloom about, other parts of the world and never in a way, in my opinion, that either shines a true light on, what it's like to live there or the people that comprise a nation. And so when you take the opportunity to get a passport to travel outside of the US's borders, you're able to confront the things that you've learned, maybe been conditioned to from your environment, to challenge those beliefs and to grow in a different way. And so that's where I see the opportunity there in terms of global citizenry.
I agree. As someone who is actually, I'm from Jamaica, and I don't know how many of the goddesses know that. Some do know that. So, I mean, I haven't traveled super widely, but I've been Jamaica, America, Canada briefly, and Italy twice. And I will tell you that, I mean, it's almost funny. I did feel different. I felt differently when I got back from Italy. I just, seeing how another culture lives, whether it's as silly as something real quick, Krishan, they in their cafes will often just stand up. And I was like, we're just going to drink this standing up. We're just going to drink our coffee standing up. I'm like, come on. That was like one little thing, or just so many other things. It does open your mind because you're like, huh, yeah, we really don't have to do it like that, do we? I mean, it can really be expanding. So yeah, just wanted to add that. While
Yeah.
you were talking, go ahead, Krishan, go ahead.
No, 100%. I mean, I remember the first time I went out of the country, I went to Canada, and this was maybe over 20 years ago. And just there was, I was walking down the street, and they had like the parking, not the parking meter, but it was electronic. And at that time, we didn't have it in the States, and there were just certain things that were very logical. Or
Right.
when I made my first solo trip, which I know we'll talk about, and that was transformative in a lot of ways in terms of my healing. To New Zealand, and things are opposite. They drive on the opposite side of the road. The outlets are different.
Mhm.
And I remember had to get an adapter to plug a device in, and then I'm like, it's not working, it's not working.
Mhm.
And I hit the switch on the wall. I'm like, it's not working. But it's because each outlet has its own on-off switch, and that's to preserve, electricity and not consume more. We talk about phantom power in our devices.
Mhm.
So during that trip, I also went to Wahiki Island, and it's right off of Auckland. And on that island, they have these big vats, and that's because you collect your rainwater, and
Mhm.
you have to pretty much exist off
Yeah.
of the water that you collect, because if you
Wow.
run out, you are going to pay a premium to buy water. And everyone on the island does that. So it just challenged me in a lot of ways to think differently about,
Mhm.
one, understanding other people and how they live, and then two, thinking about me as a global citizen, right? We're all on planet Earth.
Right.
And so what are the things that I can do in my, part of the universe to really think differently and challenge some of the ways that I live and move about this world? So that's why I think travel is so transformative in a lot of ways.
Mhm. Well, why don't we just even get to, I mean, and this might transition us to, especially for Black women and women of color. I mean, my audience is diverse, but specifically, I would say for Black women or women of color, that impacts when we're in a country outside the US. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me when I think about
Mhm.
my solo trip to New Zealand in 2017. It
Mhm.
was a long time coming. It was something that I had wanted to go to New Zealand, live in New Zealand since I was a little girl growing up in the Bronx.
That is so interesting because I have something about New Zealand too. That's weird.
How a little Black girl in the Bronx decided that, her life plan was gonna include trips to New Zealand. I do not know, but it took, many years to make that dream a reality. And I remember, thinking and walking along the beach in the Jersey Shore and thinking,
Mhm.
oh, it was something that, almost, unattainable because of circumstance. And
Right.
then it just clicked in my head like night and day. And it was like, why am I waiting for some guy to come and whisk me away
Right.
on,
Mhm.
some trip? when
Mhm.
I could just do this for myself. I can be the hero in my own story, right? And
Mhm.
so I went home that day and I bought the plane ticket. And
Wow.
yeah, and I spent a little over 3 weeks
Uh,
there. It was the first
uh-huh.
time I left my kids and went on a plane for almost 30 hours.
Yeah.
But I grew in so many ways, and the one of the ways that I grew was it I didn't know what to expect. As an American, as a Black American who is the descendants of former enslaved persons in this country, there is intergenerational trauma and a weight that comes along with that in assumptions and um, yeah, assumptions is probably the best word about how I might be in when I encounter someone that I don't know. And so I was definitely on edge, especially as a New Yorker, right? So I'm
Right.
carrying this like, you know,
But
you
that's
gotta
another
stay
level,
ready,
Krishan. As a New Yorker, we're ready for like,
right?
a mugging to go down or something. Right.
Yeah, and I'm ready for, not really connecting with people, no eye contact, and I'm walking down the street and
Mhm.
people are saying hello to me
Wow.
and welcoming me into their homes,
Mhm.
and this just amazing experience, they don't lock their doors there, there's just things that I was challenged, and the Maori people, are
The
so
Maori. Yeah.
wonderful. I stayed with the Maori family during that part
Mhm.
because I
Wow.
don't travel. I tried not to travel as a tourist. I try to connect with people, um, and have a different
Wow.
experience, and so that was interesting to me, and, I think I've talked about it on the podcast, during that trip, I challenged myself. I was not going to really do anything but lay on the beach for, 3 weeks, and next thing you know, I rented a car, and I was like, "Oh, I can figure out this driving on the other side of the road,"
Oh,
and
wow.
going cross country. My US lead foot was not really converting miles per hour to kilometers and got pulled over. Uh, and I was like, I see the flashing lights, and it gets back to the question, right? So
Trauma.
automatically, I'm thinking, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
right? I'm in
Mhm.
this foreign land. Now I'm having this encounter with the police, and the police didn't even have guns. I
They
didn't
don't
notice
have guns. Wait, 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 wait. Stop right there. They don't have guns in the
No, he
police?
didn't have he didn't have a weapon. He didn't have a service
I wonder
revolver.
if he's just like a traffic cop maybe. Maybe they
No,
don't
a full-on cop, and
really.
it was interesting because he pulled me over, and then he approached the vehicle, right? Because everything's opposite, and he's in the active roadway, and I'm concerned for like, "Dude, these cars are flying by, you're gonna get hit." And
Uh-huh,
so the first time I didn't know, and I say the first time because I got pulled over twice. So so the first time
uh-huh.
I got pulled over and I didn't notice that he didn't have a service revolver. So he's like, "Oh, how are you doing?"
How are you doing?
Yeah, he's like, "How are
What's
you
going
doing?"
on? What are you doing?
Yeah, "Are you on holiday?" And
Oh,
he was
okay.
having a whole conversation with me, and, I mean, I got a ticket, but he was so pleasant about it, I felt bad that I was speeding, and so I was just
Oh
like,
my goodness.
"Okay," and,
Goodness.
the equivalent in USD, I think it was $20, so it's like, "Okay, here we go."
Wow, that's not even steep, really.
No, I
Wow,
was
wow,
thinking,
wow.
New York City, surcharge, the whole
60,
thing, that
70,
might be
80,
100,
100
$400.
something.
Yeah, no.
Wow, wow.
And then the second time I got pulled over, which was unfair. Uh, so, and it was funny because I went to that Maori family I was staying with, and the
Mhm,
gentleman, I
mhm.
told him, I said, "Oh," because I should also preface this that when I went on this trip, this was just after the election.
Okay,
So Obama was still president, and we had 45 as the incoming.
okay.
So that kind of punctuated my trip.
Mhm.
And so people would say like, "Is America okay?"
Oh, they really
And
would? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I remember when I got pulled over and my host said to me, uh, "Krishan," he said, "You should have," he said, "I'm surprised they gave you a ticket." And I explained the situation, and he said, our police don't have guns here." And I said, "Really? I didn't even notice." And he said, "Yeah, you won't get killed here like at like where you live.
Wow.
And I was like,
Guys,
you know what?
let's pause there for a second. This is her Maori host in New Zealand telling her as an American, we know this is an issue. You're not going to be like in danger in
Yeah,
that way. That's really sad for the country, right? For our
exactly.
country.
Exactly. Because
Wow.
that's how we are perceived in another land. And New Zealand is one of the safest countries in the world.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and I had to take a pause in that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, I have since traveled back to New Zealand. It's one
Mhm.
of my most favorite places. I recently came back from Portugal, which is another one in the top
That's on a
5.
lot of people's radar.
Yes,
Lot of radars, yeah.
very, very safe. I have certain rules when I travel, and I did end up breaking one of the rules when I was there, and I felt really safe in doing so.
Oh, really? Okay, okay.
I don't go out at night when I travel by myself, and I did twice. Once because I was out late on a tour and I got back late, and I had to go through a park, a huge park that was like similar to Central Park. I felt completely
Really?
safe, which I was surprised. And the other time was toward the end of my trip, and I had to do a speaking engagement and it ended late, and so I just wanted to walk off some energy. And I took a long 1 hour walk at 10 o'clock at night, and I felt very, very safe and comfortable. Now, again, that's something I've gone to. Well, I guess these trips coming up will be countries 13 and 14. Been to quite a few, but I felt really, really safe. But again, you still have to have your wits about you.
Yeah, you have to have common sense, of
Yeah.
course. That's a given. That's separate from anything even to do with race. And in fact, as a woman, right, there are many levels. There's a human level of safety. Then
Yes.
there's as a female, I'm being honest here. I hope I don't offend anyone with these terms, okay? Because this is where we are right now. But as a woman, obviously, there are other things that happen to us, there are other threats. And then as a Black woman or as a person of color, so I mean, there's many levels to this.
Yes.
Chrishan, I'd love to talk about, so for my viewers, I mean, you're well traveled, right? I've been to one other country. I'll briefly share my experience because we want to paint an honest picture, because my fear is, I know some of us maybe, and there are other channels covering this, where we're like, oh, it's going to be paradise. Like I'll be running in the fields, with the wheat blowing, and, it's just joy. I mean, when I was in Italy, I traveled with a friend, my best buddy, who people, assume is my brother. And as I have to say, as a Black man, he had a couple of like tiny things happen to him. Absolutely no violence, no physical threats, but he felt maybe literally twice that there might have been some sort of like reaction with him. Now, this is even with him still completely enjoying the trip, overall, going back with his partner at the time. So obviously he didn't, feel that bad. But it's not perfect, because I don't want to use a curse word, but you have blank holes everywhere, right?
Oh
Can
yeah, everywhere.
that's just and it may not be your race. That's another key thing I want to put out, goddesses, because I've been in other chats where I see specific, like where it's a Black women community, and they're like, oh, it's because of race. And the thing is, when you're abroad, it could be the person is just, like I said, a blank, and
Mhm.
they really are, or you have trespassed. For instance, I'll share something actually really honestly. When I was in Italy, I was trying to go to some little restaurant in Venice. It was like closed. And so the woman was yelling out from the building. Of course, she spoke Italian and I only spoke English. And we ended up like arguing. Don't ask me how that's possible, Krishan, really, I'm telling you the truth. And I realized later, it's like, well, you're kind of like, well, why isn't your restaurant open? Like to her, it's like, read the sign. And I'm like, I can't read the sign. Like, so a lot of times we have to also be careful. It's not necessarily about race or racism. It's, you may have really trespassed a norm of that society. Can you just
Oh,
talk about that?
100%. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So, to bring it together is, you
Mhm.
can go to a country. Some countries especially if you're from the United States, which I'm assuming that a lot of your audience
Most,
is from,
yes,
we're
most.
we're used to things, especially if you're from like New York, where I am. I'm from New York, but I live in New Jersey. Things are fast paced.
Yes,
So,
yes,
and especially in this interconnected, technologically driven world, everything is in a nanosecond.
right.
And so we have that level of expectation.
We do as Americans. So yeah,
Mhm.
the person who wrote Microaggressions, I'm not. It's this. I would not consider this a microaggression. What we're talking about now, just to be clear. So keep going, Krishan.
And then, you go to another country where they may not have the same level of infrastructure, or
Thank
to
you.
your point, the norms are okay, we might have Wi-Fi and, all of these other things, but, the service is the service. And so, like, I remember being in France, and I was enjoying a meal with a friend of mine in Paris, and we were there for hours. We closed the restaurant. No
Mhm,
one rushed and was like, "Oh, we need this table." But
mhm.
I've also gone to places like Greece, and I was in Mykonos, and
Oh,
we waited at the table, and then we were waiting for the server and signaled. I was
mhm.
also recently when I was in Portugal, I was with a friend having a meal in the afternoon, and we were having trouble, and she speaks fluent Portuguese. She's Portuguese. And
Mm,
then it took us another 25 minutes to get the
mhm,
check, because and she kept saying, "Scoop it, scoop." And he would just walk by. And she's like, "Con licença," walk by. And so again, it's not necessarily, it might just be it takes a long time to get things done. And then the other side, I would say for Americans traveling abroad, even though we have issues with our country, that
mhm.
US passport carries a lot of weight and still has a lot of cachet. And so
Yeah,
oftentimes you have a level of privilege with your blue passport that people who do
true.
not have that enjoy. And so for Black travelers, travelers of color, that privilege can bring up conflicting emotions, because depending on your experience, you might feel like this level of wanting to have some distance from your country, but then also enjoying the benefits of it. And so sometimes those things come up, but that's the beauty of travel and being able to, journal about that or do mindfulness
Mhm.
questions to
It
say,
is. It's complex.
what
It's
is
actually
that
very
coming up
complex.
for? Yeah, why is this coming up? Or that police encounter, why is my heart rate going up? And
Right.
things
And
like
yeah, that's a big one too. I'm so glad you shared that one with the police. I mean, is that, I remember I think that was what you had shared with me when we initially chatted. And it just blew my mind, the fact that we're carrying so much stress, that we're thousands of miles away, maybe from home. But when we see, it's not even the same uniform, it's a different uniform, but our mind is like alert, alert, and we go into that state of fear. That is really
yes.
a shame,
Yeah.
which leads to and is our topic of this moving abroad to maybe experience some peace and some wellness. So, and how to get started. Maybe we can kind
Mm.
of blend those two. Well, can I say, like someone like me, right? I think some of my viewers, all income levels. I mean, some retired, some professional women, and some, especially some of my younger audience, maybe just sort of like average paying jobs, or even jobs that don't pay too much. But I just want to put out, and I mean, you're in a better position to confirm this. A lot of countries are cheaper than America. So it's don't think of it necessarily as you have to be wealthy to travel. It might be about being strategic. So yeah, I throw it to
Mm.
you, Krishan.
Yeah, that's interesting because
Mhm.
I've done, probably, almost every job and been
Mhm.
at almost every income band in my
Yeah.
lifetime. So I definitely can relate. There
Mhm.
are things, I feel like people need to start where they are. If
Okay.
you have only been in your home state, maybe it's doing a staycation and seeing something within your home state that you've never seen before. Maybe if you're in Jersey, go to the shore or something like that. Then you
Wow.
want to take a step a little further.
Mhm.
Maybe if you're ready to go to not quite yet ready to leave the US, maybe you want to go and spend some time in Hawaii, or you want to go to Puerto Rico or one of the other territories, right? Where you don't
Right.
need a passport.
Can I stop you there? Because let's
Sure.
even, so Puerto Rico, but what are we, the US, the Virgin Islands, right?
Mhm.
What else does America claim? What I'm trying to say, there's some other places we can go where we're really still kind of in America.
Yeah, yeah, you can do the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Um,
There's some territories that you can probably access without having a passport, but at some point, if you want to go further, you're going to need one. I mean, when I went to Canada, this was when you could still cross the border with your driver's license, but that is no longer the case.
okay.
So I would say get your passport, because your passport, two things with it. One, it lasts for 10 years if you're an adult. If you have a child, it's 5 years. And it will also serve as your ID. So I know a lot of the states are moving to real ID. And
I
so
know.
you
I know.
don't want to, you just like for me, I just got I don't just got my driver's license, but my driver's license is about to expire. It doesn't make sense for me to renew it when I can just use my real ID, because I'll be moving abroad and I won't have a car. So don't really
Okay.
need that.
Okay.
But all that is to say is, with your passport, now you can see like all the countries that you can access. In some countries, you don't even need to get a visa. So for example,
Because of the American privilege, basically.
correct.
Yeah.
The country of Georgia, for example,
Mhm.
you can stay an entire year in that country,
What?
visa free. Yeah,
Wait, a year?
one
That
year.
is
No,
crazy. I thought you were going to say 3 months, Krishan, because that's
no.
more
As a
1 year.
US citizen, one whole year.
Wow. Because they're thinking you've got, I mean, certainly comparatively, probably you've got some cash.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so the cost of living there
Hmm.
gets to your earlier question,
Yeah.
relative. And so there's a number of tools and resources out there that you can do a comparative analysis. But for example, so
Hmm.
Wanda Duncan, who has been on my platform, at the time I interviewed her, she was in Albania. More recently,
Albania? Can we
yeah.
talk about an obscure country? I'm sorry.
No, no worries.
I mean,
Now she's in Georgia
okay.
for the probably the coming year, and she's the host of the Black Women Travel podcast. And so
Okay.
now we spoke about 2 weeks ago, and so now she's in Georgia, and comparatively, it's reasonable, at least where she is. Certainly less than what I pay in New Jersey, and
Oh,
so
of course.
when
Yeah.
you go on these sites and look at these tools, you
Mhm.
can design a budget that works for you and your lifestyle.
Mhm.
And I would also recommend to people, because again, it's not just about picking a place, figuring out the budget, and then moving.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do
There's
not,
more to it.
again, I see in a couple other channels, Krishan, I know you've seen this. I see women like just, okay, so where should I move? Okay, I'm moving there. No, they've never, who does that? You've never visited the country. You
Yeah.
don't speak the language if it's not English, or don't do that. I'm not
No,
suggesting that.
you're setting yourself up for failure. And then you're going to
Absolutely.
blame the country. You're going to blame the people. You're going to say, oh, this isn't what I saw online.
Exactly. Exactly.
People, like anything, right, are going to cherry pick and give you a certain amount of information, right? Anything is
Mhm.
free. You still have to do the work. And that's one of the
Due
things that I
diligence.
stress to people is that, okay, yeah, there's a lot of information on the internet that's free, but there's a lot of conflicting information. And so you can free yourself, meaning consuming free content, yourself, and still be stuck, because the brain is taking in all of these things, and now you're trying to marry, well, this person said this and this person said that, and you're
Right.
making your assumptions, and then you're still not making any traction. So one of the things that I say is, like, get with a great organization,
Mhm.
get in where you fit in, pay the money, invest in yourself. If this is something that you want to do, and by that I mean expatriation, you will have to spend things. You will have to spend money to get a passport, a plane ticket, a visa, an apartment. There are just things that you basically have to do. For example, if you want to live in Europe, and
Yes.
I'm using Europe as an example, but
Mhm.
many other countries outside the US, this is true, and you need to open up a bank account as part of your residency, well, guess what? Those banks charge a monthly fee. You might not be doing that. You might have free banking in the US. that is something that you have to get used to. It's not, oh, well, I'm not going to pay this because da, 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 da. The
Mhm.
whole goal of going to another country is not for you to impose your beliefs onto other
Right.
people. We are not trying to do.
American, quote, American values or beliefs. And I think that's really easy to do, Krishan. Back to my thing of this, me being upset with this restaurant not being open. I mean, it sounds silly now. I wouldn't do it now per se, but there really was a miscommunication. And as I think of it, it was afternoon and probably the restaurant opens for dinner because it was a really tiny place. So yeah, we can't bring, especially some city attitudes about things done quickly. I
Mhm.
want it now. Or another really quick example. I went to Italy, you guys, and I wanted iced coffee. I don't even usually drink. I don't drink coffee now, but it was hot. I wanted iced coffee, and they're like, "We don't do iced coffee."
No.
No, they don't. So well, I'm a New Yorker though, so I said, "Look," I said, you can't just throw the coffee over ice or whatever." He's just like, "Well, we don't make it." I said, "Okay," and it was like something out of a movie. I said, "You know what? So I'd like a coffee, please." I said, "I'd like a glass of ice." And I think there was one other thing I needed. And I stood there and I gave the iced coffee and he was fine with it. He's like, "Oh, I can give you a coffee and I can give you a glass of ice." I mean, I just remember thinking, this is stupid. Just do the iced coffee, right?
Yeah.
But kind of to our point. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's how it was in Portugal.
Mhm.
I consume coffee in the morning and I have my, well, I'm cutting down. But at the time it was like 2 cups. But I'm used to my big US size mug at home, right? That is abnormally large. And so, or I don't drink Starbucks really, but
Mhm.
or you go to Starbucks and you get this gigantic,
Yeah,
grande, whatever the size.
grande. Mhm.
And so I go for a coffee and they're giving me this little diminutive size cup. So
Yeah.
now I have to buy multiple just to get what I normally have as 1 cup. And I remember the
That's
absurdity of me walking from the cafe back to my flat with these 2 like to go cups and no lids because they're trying to cut down on plastic, which again, great for the environment, but not great
right.
when you have to walk a block and a half with hot coffee in your
Oh
hand
my
because
goodness.
you want to have a cup. And so again, it's, you will be confronted with a lot of different things along the journey. Some may just be things
Mhm.
that, you can crack up later about, and
Yeah.
some, will cause you to stop and think about,
Mhm.
again, who you are, your place in the world. But I think everything is an opportunity to stretch yourself a little bit further and get out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely. So I just put up on the screen from Vintage Sims. It's a regular in my lives that they're thinking about moving to another country, but they feel, because they feel unsafe in America right now. But with a kid, I mean, I just want to say there's a couple of YouTube channels where people, have their kid and you could sort of see how they did it.
Yeah.
Krishan, any comments on that? Or aren't you? Yeah, maybe your situation. I don't know.
So my son is in college and my daughter is graduating next year. And so both of them will not be joining me. And I respect that. I mean, they've known for many years that I'm planning to move abroad and I've raised them
Mm,
to be independent. And so I
mhm.
want them to, well, one, I want to respect where they are in their life journey.
Sure,
I
sure.
hope that they will get to a point where they willingly want to come with me and that the water doesn't continue to get hot in America as it seems to be getting. All that is to say, though, I've interviewed a lot of people on the Blaxit Global podcast or on our YouTube channel that
Mhm.
have made the move with children.
With children,
So
absolutely,
and,
absolutely.
small children up to about
Mhm.
middle school, and then in my episode, I haven't released it yet, but it will be out this season. I think it airs next month, with a guest. This is her solo episode, but I actually did interview her. It was the Black in Portugal episode. I
Mhm.
interviewed several members of Black in Portugal, and one of the members has a teenager, and she's been in Portugal for about a year now. So they moved when she was 14. So it is
That
possible.
feels tricky. That feels see, I if I had a kid, I'd try to take take 'em young.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, and so it's great to
Uh,
see people or have conversations with people who
mhm.
are doing it at different ages and
Yeah,
stages to kinda see what are the challenges that they go through. Those conversations about moving is different with the late teen or mid-teen
absolutely.
than it
Yeah.
is with, a baby, than it is with someone
Yeah.
who's school age to someone who's middle school. That could look very different. But I will say that
Yeah.
children are children. They don't carry the weight that we do as adults. And
Mhm.
so trust in the fact that children will be able to acclimate. That
I completely agree, especially if they have a loving parent. I mean, that is the
exactly.
key thing, and preparation, I would believe, like real preparation for the move, not just suddenly, spring it on them, but just get them ready, maybe books and it just, step by step, really get them ready for this change.
Yeah, you can make it fun for them, especially,
Mhm.
the age in which they are. You'll know how to appeal to them. You're their parent, right? So
Sure.
think about how you want to talk to your child. And again, if that's an older child, you might need to do a little bit more negotiating, understand what their feelings are, any reluctance. For a young child, you might need to gamify it a little bit, right? So it
Sure.
might be, creating a game out of moving abroad. What will we get rid of? What would we like to have here?
Yeah,
There's
make like
there's
a little board game. Like you post something just like with bright colored paper, like school teachers do, and they have different
yeah,
things they're working on and they get a star if they like, they take it down to like four, okay, your five favorite stuffed animals, right? And they get
exactly.
a check. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I interviewed Juanita Ingram, she has a show on Amazon Prime, Expats, the International Ingrams, and we did a launch party when that happened. And so she moved abroad with her husband. She's a trailing spouse, and they
Okay.
have two children. And so it was really showing all of the journey as they went from Indiana to, at the time, Taiwan, and now they're in
Oh my.
Singapore.
Now they're in where?
Singapore.
That's a huge change though, Krishan.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, guys, I want to share that I'm going to try to put some of these links. I'm not going to try. I will. Give me a little bit because I have to get them from Krishan, but she's mentioning some wonderful resources like this. Juanita, you said her last name was Ingram and she's on.
Ingram, yes. I interviewed her on,
Mhm.
my YouTube channel, and then she
Okay.
was on last season. I think she was the next to last episode from last season of the Blaxit Global podcast.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to put some of these links below, guys. Give me like maybe till tomorrow morning to get them up there, but um no, this is exciting. I want to add something I hadn't thought I would share, but so when I moved from Jamaica, my mom was when I think about our ancestors and just like when we would come to a new country and how scary that would be. My mom was not, highly educated. She had a stressful life, but so she didn't do any prep with me, Krishan. So yeah, let me think what she just, I knew. So my mom was here in America already. And
Mm,
I don't think there was much warning, but for me as a child, it was just a joy to be reunited with my mother. So
mm.
I don't remember, to be really honest, I don't remember missing Jamaica. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm finally back, because my mom was my primary caregiver. And that's what kids care about, let's be
Yeah.
honest. That I was so happy to be back with her, that everything else was just like, I mean, I made friends like immediately, like, and this was when kids played outside. You remember, if anybody remembers,
Yeah.
they had bicycles and they'd be outside.
They
Nobody.
still play outside in other countries, just not in America.
Exactly. Literally, this was pre-computers, people. And, your mom would yell when it was dinner time, your name, and you'd be like, oh, I don't want to come in, like that. I mean, I made friends fast. It's just kids are really adaptable. So even if, yeah, it's more about what they get there once they're there. I'd love to ask some of my viewers though too, where have you traveled to? Where have you been to, and where might you like to? I want to get you guys more involved. So I just want to give a moment to yeah, somebody says back in the day most Caribbean parents didn't prepare their children. Exactly. Thank you, Rose. No. This is what we're doing. Caribbean parents' thought is, you're a child. That means I made the decisions and you're
Yep.
doing it. That's what
Mhm.
that meant. So, but it yeah, it was good. And then we brought dad up. We had
Mhm.
changes. Yeah. So
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
interesting because especially as Black people, and
Mhm.
that's the thing for me in the show and in the platform is really just to remind people that as members of the African diaspora, we have migrated in different parts of the world. And so when I bring different people on the platform who can talk about their, origin story to where they are today,
Mhm.
you can hear in the stories, it might be, their
Mhm.
parent or the parent before them,
That's right.
and that is embedded in the fabric of who we are. We've gotten away from that, and I think for many of us,
Sure.
obviously technology has a lot of things and benefits for us, but then for some, there it has opened a divide of not feeling as connected. And so when they travel to other lands and they're seeing kids playing outside or
Right.
being able to pick fruit off a tree and walk around outside barefoot and, look another person in the eye, that is something that hits your heart and your mind in a
Mhm.
different way. And so I would challenge people to, if you feel right now that, and it doesn't have to be because the climate is the way it is in the United States, you can travel, right? It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be the water gets boiling hot for you to move. It can
Right.
be something sitting in your spirit that's calling on you to do more. So I would say, listen to that internal GPS and that goddess within. Listen to what she's telling you and follow your heart.
Mhm. No, that's beautiful. I'm just putting up a comment here. There are Facebook groups. Yeah, where children and families. Actually, so Krishan, to yeah, no, the internet. I mean, you could be talking to people in the exact town you're going to move to.
Yes.
It could be in Albania, apparently, which was not on my radar. I'll admit.
Yeah, not on mine either. But I've always struck with like, oh wow, you're there. That's so cool.
Yeah, but you could connect with people. I know Mexico has a huge American expat community and
Yeah.
an African American community, different cities. I mean, Mexico is so is there anything we haven't covered that you feel like would make sense to put in here? We started how to get started. You were going through stake. You got up to passport, and then you started to share about your friend. Was there anything else in terms of how to get started with
No,
moving
I would say
abroad?
definitely, get that passport. If you feel like you need support, plug into a community. Some
Community.
people are in multiple communities like myself,
Okay.
and I have a platform. And then I would say, especially if you feel like you need, particularly because of a lot of things, like for example, for me, I've been on a media consumption break for 3 weeks today.
Oh, really? Oh, good for you. You timed that very well.
Yes, so I've not turned on the news or anything in 3 weeks. I still know everything that's going on because obviously, right? But
Google
what I
telling
needed
you if
to
it's
do
really important.
was to start filtering better. I have a lot of, technology in my home. I have assisted devices, voice-enabled devices, and I was consuming way too much too often. And
Wow.
so in
Wow.
order to preserve my peace, I
Yeah.
said, "Okay, I don't need to hear the update first thing in the morning. I don't need to
No.
turn it on during my coffee, and I certainly don't need to watch it while I'm, eating dinner." So
Or
now
before
I
you go
feel
to sleep and you're trying to get a restful sleep. That's so
exactly.
important.
So you
Yeah.
need to filter. I still know everything that's gone on, right? But I don't need to have other people's voice in my head and kind of setting the stage for my day, or my night. And so I
Wow.
would say, definitely start with, getting that passport, connecting with the right community.
Mhm.
Listen to, if you want to listen to the Blaxit Global podcast or other, forms to get in your head and get inspired.
Mhm.
Because sometimes, there will be, as life is, challenges
Mhm.
that will prevent you from getting to where you are. So you need to have, things that'll keep you motivated on those challenging days. And on the days that, you're feeling really great, you still might need that pick me up. You might need that community. And that's an opportunity for you to give to someone. Maybe you come across an article or a cheap airfare or whatever it is, right? That's your
Mhm.
ability to give back. And so I would definitely encourage people to do that. Keep a journal. Definitely keep track of your wellness practice. And
Mm.
again, preserve your peace.
Wow, you don't know how much, I mean, that I need to hear that. As I said, this ruling on Friday just really threw me. Even though I thank God that we had some sort of warning about it, because I really think I would have been just blown away if it had not been leaked that this might happen. I think the level of stun would have just been actually overwhelming, like shock. So,
Yeah.
Chrishan, I don't know if you can see, but yeah, I just grabbed the link. Um, and guys, so check out Blaxit Global, and you've got great, I'm looking at some of the podcasts oh, I love this World Schooling Nomad.
Yes, yes, Karen, she also has a YouTube channel, and she has world schooled her son since he was born. And so she shares their backstory in that episode. And we did a live, I believe it was last year as well. There's some great stories, and so you don't have to think about it in a traditional way. You can unschool, world school. You can do a lot of different things, especially if you have children. And I think for everyone, either I've interviewed or I've met along the journey, when I ask them, like, do they have any regrets? Their only regret is not doing it sooner.
I Goddess, I feel that now. I haven't done it yet, and I just know, I'm like, why? This is really the time. I just want to say to my audience, this is really the time, I think, to make this type of move. I want to stress, and I don't know how much time you have, Chrishan, but I just want to stress the idea of also testing. We didn't get into that too much. Temporary, hop around a little bit. Like, for instance, you may go, like, everybody's raving about Mexico City. I'm sorry, I don't actually think I would like Mexico City unless it was a really quiet area, because some of the things I've heard, I know it's culturally very rich, but to me, New York City is the best city in the world. Therefore, I'm like, well, why would I go to another city? If I was going to do city, I would want to do more laid back, right? I would want a slower lifestyle. So I think I wonder if we could just emphasize, or how to maybe hop around a little bit, or how to test waters.
Sure, sure. And I have a few minutes because I have a thing in my own community at
Oh,
3:30. But I will say that one of the things that is important is for you to understand what that looks like for you. Just like your fingerprint is unique to you, so is your travel experience. You might be an extrovert, a social butterfly. You might thrive in being in a city environment. I was surprised. As a native New Yorker, I'm very much introverted, and I've lived in the suburbs most of my adult life. And so when I went to Lisbon, I didn't think that I was going to like it. And even though I ventured to more suburban parts of Lisbon, I went all the way to Porto, I went different parts, I kept being drawn to Lisbon. And that's where, surprisingly, I feel like that'll be my home base, at least for the first year. But to your question and comment, my latest episode, I have a new episode coming out tomorrow, but my latest episode is with Amber Johns, who's an attorney, and she was on House Hunters International last season.
I love House Hunters International.
Yes, yes, several of my guests actually have been on House Hunters. We talk about the few. It's been about 4 or 5 of them at this point.
Wow.
But she splits her time between Paris and Chicago. And so, and actually Deirdre, who is my guest on episode 1, who lives in Bali, she is now going to be splitting her time between Ghana and Bali. And so there's different ways you can slice it, right? Your journey doesn't have to be, 12 months in one place. You can think about, hey, you know what? I don't like winter. I want to spend my winters in the Caribbean or maybe in New Zealand because they're opposite seasons. Maybe you want to travel and you don't like crowds and you don't want to be in Europe in July and August because a lot of people come for tourism. You might want to go to a different part of the world, and that gives you an opportunity to take a break. You'll start to learn who you are as you start to travel. And that traveler, where you start, like the way I traveled in 2017, looks very different than the way I travel in 2022. I've learned so much about myself I left for New Zealand with 2 big luggage pieces, you know, and then I was like, "Why am I trucking this thing?" And now when I went to Portugal, I have my little carry-on. That's it. Like, there's
Yeah.
just so many things that you'll learn and you'll adapt and you will grow. And so
Mm,
that's the thing that I think is the gift of travel is you start to
yeah.
have a different relationship with others, but more importantly, you have a different relationship with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just put up, I saw something Rose shared. Yeah, thank you for that, Krishan. People who have the natural ability to adjust to different situations will have an easier time moving overseas. I want to say that I agree with that. I mean, I don't want to put off people who, like my dear friend who I mentioned earlier, who everybody assumes is my brother, because we kind of we look similar. We're like, but we're not related. He's more of a, I like structure. I like routine. He has his mug, for example. He'd probably travel with his own mug so he could have his coffee in his mug. I do. What do you think about that? I mean, I just think that adaptability, that's the phrase I want to put out to my viewers, is that adaptability and flexibility, I think, is an underlying trait that will lead to success wherever. If you end up in Albania or Tanzania, you're going to need flexibility.
Oh, 100%. I did a video on my YouTube channel about just that very topic. Just to understand, how are you? Are you of a fixed mindset or are you in a growth mindset? Everything that comes down to either travel, expatriation, whatever, you have to win the battle with the mind first. So if you don't know you, if you don't love you, right, you can't expect anyone else to know or love you. So part of that is that being travel is deconstructing that, understanding who you are as you start to navigate. And so I think that's critical to the journey. If you are someone who likes things, on time, black or white, there's no gray in between,
Go
then
to Germany.
then going to Italy where they take, siestas in the middle of the day and don't open for dinner till 7 o'clock might not work for you.
Right,
Right?
right,
But
right.
so that's why it's really important not just to choose a destination because of what someone else said or what the
Well
price
said.
looks
It was
like,
nice.
to
Right.
understand who are you and then how are you going to show up when you're there. I
Mhm,
love travel because,
mhm,
again, when I went to New Zealand, I learned things about myself on that trip. And I talk about it on the podcast. That's the first episode that I never did on the States. I don't swim. I
mhm,
went kayaking and
mhm.
I'm afraid of heights. I went zip lining.
My God.
I hiked the volcano. I did all kinds of crazy wild things I've done as I
Mhm.
travel. And I'm like, who is this woman? It's like, she does not do these things in New Jersey. So,
Krishan,
um,
that's the same thing I felt like. That's when
yeah,
I said I came back, I felt different
yes.
than when I went, and it can be very subtle. Even when you arrive back in your home country,
Yes.
you then, yeah, you have shifted. You will have shifted from how you were when you left, and I think that's
Oh,
pretty
100%.
profound. That is
100%.
profound. Wow.
It's the greatest gift that you could give to yourself, I
Hmm.
think, is travel because, again, you will learn. You think you know yourself, you'll definitely learn yourself, especially if you travel. And I do a mixture now. Before I was solo traveling for years. Now I do a mixture of solo and occasionally group travel. And that's just to challenge me a little bit more, to not be as insular as sometimes I tend to be. But again, it's because you evolve. In the best case, you will evolve along your journey. And like I said, that's the greatest gift that you could give to yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Thank you so, so much. I think the main,
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
yeah, and the main link I will put is to Blaxit Global. If there's anything else you want me to add, just like shoot me an email or something and I'll
Oh,
add it.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a pleasure being here. Definitely
mhm,
listen to the podcast, subscribe.
mhm.
There's a new episode coming out tomorrow that is very timely given everything that's going on right now. So,
Really? Can you tease that a little bit? Why is it so timely? Because then I may need to.
it's about freedom.
Okay.
It's about freedom. So that's
Okay.
about as much as I'll tell you. But tomorrow morning, if you subscribe to the podcast, it'll be in your phone in your download tomorrow. So
Okay. What time? Like literally, do you know
8
what?
a.m. Yeah.
I
So
knew you were going to say 8. Folks, I don't know her, but I was like, she's got to be a morning person. I can feel that morning energy and get it done. And I was
yes,
like, and I literally got 8 a.m. And I'm like, Viv,
8 a.m.
I'm not listening to a podcast at 8 a.m. I'll just let you know. But when I
No,
am,
it'll be there and ready for download by 8 a.m. tomorrow. But
okay.
yes, it will be there. And like I said, the
Uh-huh.
discussion is timely.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. And I hope this, expands, like women know they can, check out your offerings, but also just to inspire, maybe just beginning to think about, maybe it's a retirement move, or maybe it's just a 3-month, I think I have a lot of educators. A lot of my clients are educators. So maybe it's the summer, going somewhere for the summer, going to Kenya, going, I mean, strangely, I've heard great things about Georgia, the country.
Yes,
You know, so yeah, just give a taste of it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. It's, it's like, oh,
exactly.
it's like broccoli. You just don't love it, but now how it tastes.
That's right.
That's right. So thanks, Krishan.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.